There were grasses on the earth, and then there were men, and then there was the plow. The Egyptians were the first to make bread, as we know it today. They discovered the secret of the leaven, or of yeast, and so they made bread, traded with bread, measured wealth by bread, worshipped with bread, and ultimately were buried with bread. They may have been the first, but they were certainly not the last. All rely on bread, and so bread is a medium understood by all. The ancient Greeks, a people who prided themselves on their ability to cultivate and create, spoke the language of bread too. Nowhere is this seen more than in their reverence for and worship of the goddess Demeter. From the Eleusinian mysteries and the annual harvest festival to each man making his daily bread, the Greeks realized their dependence on grain for life, and thus their dependence on the goddess. In his revered book, 6,000 Years of Bread, Its Holy and Unholy History, H.E. Jacob wrote that all agriculture, from plowing to grinding and baking, come under the aegis of the Demeter cult. Every Greek who had any part in sowing or making of bread was held to be performing a priestly service. He was a religious apprentice to Mother Earth. The Homeric hymn to Demeter, a story of trial, heartbreak, and irrevocable change, has often been seen as an etiology for the Eleusinian mysteries or for the changing of the seasons. However, I think that the Homeric hymn to Demeter is more than a story about a mother's sorrow, but it's an etiology for the origin of man's long-standing reliance on bread. Persephone was playing in a field, abducted, raped, and hidden from her mother. These acts served as a catalyst for Demeter's personal sorrow. Notably, Jacob wrote that the suffering of Persephone, the imprisonment of the wheat seed, were not what caused the pity of the audience. It was Demeter's passion, her near madness, and her release from the suffering that made the Greeks so ardently espouse the myth. Bread is made from grains that, like Persephone, are stolen from their stalks and from their mother, Earth. The grains are soaked in scalding water, approximately 150 degrees. They're beaten and their hard exteriors are softened. The seed is like Persephone. A sourdough starter, a leaven, has been aged and changed with time. A good starter is what gives hope to a good loaf of bread, one with lots of air pockets and a complex gluten structure. A starter is like Demeter, who was aged in the long waiting period as she tried to find her daughter. Homer wrote that a sharp pain gripped Demeter's heart, and she tore the headband round her divine hair with her own hands. From both of her shoulders she cast down her dark veil, and rushed like a bird over the nourishing land and the sea searching, but none of the gods or mortal men wanted to tell her the truth. A pain more awful and savage reached Demeter's soul. Afterwards, angered with Cronion, roared up black clouds, she withdrew from the assembly of gods and from lofty Olympus, and went through the cities of men and the wealth of their labors. After a long search, an old woman was later found at a well, barely resembling the goddess she once was. Demeter's stay in that small town later gave birth to the Eleusinian mysteries, where the people learned to respect the power of grain and bread. However, in her bitterness, the world tasted of this formidable force. Demeter said she would never set foot on fragrant Olympus and would never allow the grain in the earth to sprout forth before seeing with her eyes her daughter's lovely face. So time passed, and Demeter waited, bubbling and growing like fermenting dough. When the moment had come, Zeus pleaded with Demeter to let the earth and the grain grow again. He commanded Persephone to return, and so the daughter and mother were reunited. Homer said that they joyfully beheld each other and rejoiced in their hearts. But Persephone returned home changed. She had eaten the seed of the underworld and had been transformed. No longer innocent and free to roam the world, Persephone was committed to spend 4 months a year with Hades. And so Demeter's sorrow would forever be felt by men, because her seed could not be found on the earth during those long winter's months. So the mother's and daughter's trials had become one, both mourning and both rejoicing in this endless cycle. The final step of baking bread is to solidify the wheat's chemical change. Seed and starter come together through fire. Bread is the mother and the daughter. Bread is the result of trial, fire, and heartache. But At the end of the day, bread is what unites us and binds us to life. Bread is honored and revered by all.